sources with direct knowledge of the fraud that some of the money could be ending up with terror organizations. Jeff Balian joining us now with more on his investigation. Jeff?
That's right. Tonight you're going to hear from a government whistleblower who tried sounding the alarm about this massive fraud well over a year ago. He's speaking out because he believes he has a moral obligation to do so and because he feels lives are on the line. Emails obtained by the Fox 9 investigators show the Department of Human Services was warned that it had a massive daycare fraud problem on its hands, that millions of stolen tax dollars were going overseas, and it was likely some of the money was being skimmed by terrorism organizations.
I've never seen anything of this level or scope in my 27-year career as an investigator.
Scott Stillman spent 8 years managing the state's digital forensics lab. That means he mined data from computers and smartphones. When the state started going after daycare centers suspected of fraud, Stillman was directly involved in the investigations. He was so alarmed by what he was finding that in March of 2017, he fired off a series of emails to his supervisors at the Department of Human Services.
We are working on and currently overwhelmed with significant fraud cases involving organized crime, defrauding hundreds of millions of dollars annually in taxpayer monies.
Here Stillman is reading from one of the emails he wrote, which the Fox 9 investigators obtained through a public records request. DHS took 2 months before it turned over the emails, and much of what it provided to us was redacted.
They were not easy to write, but I felt I had an obligation because I think that there is a strong possibility this money is being used against innocent civilians and against our military.
Stillman says he alerted a number of people in DHS, including the Commissioner's Chief of Staff, with this message.
Significant amounts of these defrauded dollars are being sent overseas to countries and organizations connected to entities known to fund terrorism.
Was the warning ever passed along to Governor Dayton?
I was not informed.
He says no, but other sources tell us people within the governor's office were told about these concerns a couple of years ago.
My chief of staff currently and previous chief of staff, from what I'm told, did not get any information alleging that there was that kind of volume of theft.
The state currently has 10 daycare centers under investigation for fraudulent billing of child care services. Each of the suspect centers has received several $1 million in government subsidies. According to public records and government sources, most are owned by Somali immigrants. We asked the Department of Human Services about the emails Scott Stillman sent in 2017. Who in the chain of command was aware of them and when? It responded with a statement. The Deputy Commissioner, Communications and Legal Staff learned there may be emails on this subject when Fox 9 made its data request in March. The then Chief Compliance Officer was informed at the time the emails were originally sent.
My name is Scott Stillman. I worked for the Department of Human Services. I started working there in 2007, became the manager of the Digital Forensics Lab in 2010. My job there was to investigate primarily employee misconduct, especially as it resolved to digital technology, computers, cell phones, servers, emails. As the daycare program grew, my duties expanded, and I was assigned to go out with law enforcement officers, both FBI, Health and Human Services, BCA, local law enforcement, and a team of investigators embedded within DHS to execute search warrants at some of the businesses that were allegedly committing some fraud. So my job was on the front lines. I would go with the police. They'd execute a lawful search warrant. My job was to identify the computers, the servers, and collect them, extract the data from them, to do some analysis, but then I would give the deeper data that I took from the computers to a team of people in the Office of Inspector General, which is embedded at DHS. Those people, there's a team of those people, most of those are highly skilled, highly trained. Their expertise consists of terrorism, money laundering, bank fraud, social media investigations. A lot of them are retired law enforcement with highly respected careers. We worked as a team to analyze this data. They were daycare frauds based out of Department of Human Services, and they were significant. They were overwhelming. The dollar amounts were upwards of 15 million. I was overwhelmed with the data that I was receiving. I was overwhelmed with what I was seeing on the computers and on their cell phones. I tracked individuals overseas using their phone to compounds in the desert in countries that are not friendly to the United States, where they would spend months over there while they were operating their DHS daycare business. And then my job was to determine if they were communicating while they were overseas and provide that information. And that's how Fawzia Ali's case went. I found the emails that she sent from Kenya to Hennepin County while she was billing for daycare that she wasn't even present for. My other duties include Medicaid fraud, specifically in the personal care attendant fraud. The dollar amounts and the scope, the size of that far outweigh daycare. I've heard it said that daycare fraud is 100 million. I've heard investigators at DHS tell me, well, I've heard the news media say it's 50% fraud rate. I've had investigators tell me it's closer to 70-80% fraud rate. And those investigators are prohibited from disclosing the data to you that they have because of data privacy laws. They go to work every day and they agonize over what they see on those computers, what they do, what they see in the bank search warrants that they run, where that money goes, where it comes from. Some of those banks, when they were doing the banks, when they were floating money through the banks, it would be deposited at 3 in the morning, and the owner of the account would quickly transfer it from one account to the next, second after second, and go through 50 different bank accounts, which is a form of money laundering. But there's no controls. Or I should say the controls are inadequate. They're not enforced. There's few checks and balances. When we did the Lillian Richardson case, that was in the news. She was on probation in Arkansas for a felony Medicaid fraud conviction. And she was running 50 different shell companies. By shell company, I mean a fraudulent, non-existent company up here in Minnesota, using her family members to extort, to use fraudulent means to extract money from the DHS Medicaid program. And that's in the newspaper. You can look at that. When we stopped counting the loss, it was 18 million. I know it was higher than that. A week after she was released from jail, I was told she was up and running again and started the same businesses and was collecting money from DHS because the controls, the checks and balances, prevented them from shutting her down again. Barb Curran, look in the news. She's in Shakopee prison. She ran a $5 million organized crime ring from her prison cell using a state computer. I asked the state agency if I could have that computer so I could track the money, and they would not give me that computer. There was a way to find that money to get that $5 million back, but we never got that money back because we don't know where it went. Was it possible to find out? Absolutely, but I was prevented. Barb Curran is in the newspaper, and you can check that out. There's some other programs at DHS as well that I know of where they teach people to train immigrants, where they teach them how to find a job. Every time there was a terrorist attack, Paris, San Bernardino, France, Paris, even the Syrian war. We would, as investigators, we would get together the day after the attack, and we would ponder amongst ourselves, how much Minnesota taxpayer dollars was being used to fund that war, that attack? What bought that gun? Where'd that money come from? Someone should be tracking that. And I think some federal agencies are doing that, but there are some impediments to that you should know about. There are some restrictions to that. I saw the internal controls. I saw the Office of Inspector General, which was run and operated by DHS. And I saw the controls, or lack of controls, the checks and balances for these programs. And I liken it to a police officer who commits a crime and then turns around and tells us, well, I'll investigate myself and tell you what I find. If you really want to have objectivity and independence and accuracy and full disclosure and transparency, you really might want to consider taking the investigative component away from the entity that controls and manages it and make them independent. I can't emphasize that strongly enough, that you are not being told everything. There are things out there. When Fox 9 pulled out my emails, or I think there were 12 emails, complete pages were redacted. And what was redacted were my case statistics. I was required to keep track of how many cases I was running every month, the dollar amount of the fraud, whether it was organized crime. And believe me, Minnesota's government programs are being victimized by organized crime because of lack of controls. And I could show you example after example after example, mostly because of lack of controls. But that's what was redacted from my emails. And if data privacy laws in place prevented me from coming forward, it prevents my coworkers who have just as many concerns as I have from coming forward. The whistleblower laws that the states control severely restrict me from coming forward and saying what I know, and prevent them from coming as well. The data privacy laws are they're ripe for corruption in the state of Minnesota.
How in the world can you burn through $24 billion in 2 years? This is how, right here. This is a huge part of it.
And so would you say a lot of that is fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Absolutely. I would say better than 90% of it is absolute outright fraud.
And a large percentage of this fraud is from these healthcare companies that are charging the state millions of dollars while they actually aren't providing anything. In fact, the FBI just did a raid a few days ago on a building similar to the one we are about to enter. Inside of this building, there were 14 of nearly the exact same businesses offering the exact same services.
Right here, you have a list of all of the healthcare companies. Loads of them right here. We want healthcare.
No, it's okay.
Yes, we'd like to speak about getting healthcare here.
No.
Why can't I get healthcare here?
No, wait. Just.
Warning, you are under video surveillance. No trespassing, security armed. This is the strangest place I've ever been to get healthcare. Just a bunch of different places. Healthcare here, healthcare right here. Another healthcare company right here. There are 3 healthcare companies inside of this building right here in this room of 7C. Now we have another Helping Hands, Home Care LLC, another healthcare company. Present Help right here. We're looking for the best rates of healthcare here inside this building because we have so many options. Who can we talk about getting the best healthcare?
I don't know.
No?
Sorry.
All right. We will not get any healthcare here. David, this is one of the stranger places I've ever been. Literally, healthcare every door you go to, yet nobody will give you a rate. How much money do you think has been funneled through this building?
Every year, I would say 50 to 60 million at least.
And finally, we were accepted into one of the daycare centers, and they actually took down our information to give us a rate. However, when we left, we were then met with the police.
We received a complaint that gentlemen matching your description were in this building harassing the individuals who stay here.
Oh, we're checking out the rates for healthcare. Because there's 14 healthcare companies inside this building, so.
Okay.
Well, that's not what he said. He said there's 14 companies here, and he's trying to assume because they're Somali providers that everyone here is fraudulent.
Okay. So we're
He's here with some kind of like propaganda.
no, we're just checking.
No, this is a area that we're allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance. Is there any other reason that you guys are here?
Well, we were checking rates.
No, he's not.
We were checking rates. We asked for rates.
No, you're not.
This is not a Minnesota problem. It started in Minnesota, but we found an individual in our investigation who was teaching and training other states to do this, and it's spreading out. It's in Seattle, New Jersey, New York, Florida, Georgia. It's everywhere.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Listen, I want you to do this with me. Let's do this together. Would you be my running mate and let's get this thing on the road?
I would be honored, Madam Vice President.
The joy that you're bringing back to the country, the enthusiasm that's out there, it'll be a privilege to take this with you across the country.